When my dad passed away, I thought the hardest part would be learning to live without him. Turns out, the hardest part was learning who people become when there's money and a house on the line. The house wasn't fancy, just a two-story home with creaky stairs, a front porch that dipped to the left, and a smell of sawdust that never really went away. He built it himself when I was little, brick by brick, back when weekends meant learning how to hold a hammer instead of playing video games. Every nail in that place was a memory. When the will came through, it said exactly what I expected. The house was mine. My dad and I had talked about it years before. He told me, "I want you to have something solid, something no one can take from you." Apparently, no one included my stepmom, Linda. Linda and Dad married when I was in college. I didn't know her well. She was the type of woman who said things like, "I'm just honest," after saying something cruel. The first few months after the funeral, she was civil. She even thanked me for handling the paperwork, claiming she was too emotional to deal with lawyers. I wanted to believe her. Then she started fixing things. She hired painters to change the walls from my dad's warm cedar tones to gray. She threw out his tools, replaced his recliner with some showroom leather monstrosity. When I asked what she was doing, she smiled and said, "Just making our home feel fresh." That word, "our," made something twist in my stomach. A week later, I went by to drop off some mail from the estate lawyer. When I put my key in the door, it didn't turn. At first, I thought I grabbed the wrong one. Then Linda opened the door halfway, blocking the entrance with her body. "Sorry," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "I had the locks changed. I didn't think you'd mind." I stared at her, confused. "Linda, this is my house. My dad left it to me." Her expression barely changed. "Your father wanted me taken care of, too. I lived here for years, paid bills, maintained everything. So I think it's only fair we share." I laughed, a short, ugly sound. "That's not how wills work." She crossed her arms. "We'll see what my lawyer says." That was the moment I realized she wasn't just overstepping, she was laying claim. To the house, to my father's memory, to the last piece of him I had left. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I just turned around, walked back to my car, and started calling my dad's attorney. The next morning, I met with the lawyer to find out just how much power she really had, and what it would take to stop her. The next morning, I sat across from Dad's lawyer, a man named Everett who'd handled the estate from day one. He wore half-moon glasses and had a way of speaking that made even bad news sound like a weather report. "She can't claim ownership," he said, scanning a stack of documents. "Your father's will is ironclad, you're the sole heir." "Then why does she think she owns it?" I asked. He looked up. "Because she's counting on you not fighting back. That's what people like her do." He slid a folder across the desk, copies of the title, the notarized will, and property records. "Keep these somewhere safe. You'll need them if she tries anything official." I left his office with the folder tucked under my arm and a strange calm settling in my chest. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't heartless. I was just dealing with someone who thought manipulation was a personality trait. By the time I got back to the house, Linda was on the front porch, sipping wine like a queen waiting for her subject. "Well," she said, "did your lawyer confirm I'm right?" "Actually," I said, stepping past her, "he confirmed you're squatting." Her smile faltered. "Excuse me." "The house is mine, always has been." She blinked, then scoffed. "Don't talk to me like I'm some stranger. I kept this place running while your father was sick. You think a piece of paper means more than what I've done here." "It's not about the paper," I said, setting the folder on the counter. "It's about the fact that you knew the truth and still changed the locks." For a moment I thought she might apologize. Instead, she sneered. "You can't evict me. The neighbors adore me. You'll look like a monster." That one sentence told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't fighting for a home. She was fighting for control. "Then I guess I'll have to look like a monster," I said quietly. That night I started documenting everything: photos of the locks, text messages, her wine-stained threats. I wasn't sure how far she'd go, but I was done playing defense. The next day I met Everett again. He handed me a single-page form. "File this with the court. It starts the eviction process." Holding that paper felt heavier than it should have. It wasn't just a legal step. It was the moment I stopped being the kid who tried to keep the peace and became someone willing to fight for what was rightfully his. When I came home to serve her the notice, I didn't expect her to already have a new plan, one that made me realize she wasn't just manipulative. She was dangerous. I came home that evening to find Linda sitting at the kitchen table with a neat stack of papers and a smug little smile. That smile was never good news. "There you are," she said, tapping the stack. "I went ahead and sorted out the ownership paperwork. You'll just need to sign at the bottom, and then we can stop all this nonsense about lawyers and eviction." I froze. Ownership paperwork. She slid the top page toward me. My name was typed neatly at the bottom beside hers, and below that in faint pen my father's signature. My stomach dropped. "Linda," I said slowly, "where did you get this?" She leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs. "From the file cabinet upstairs. You know, your father trusted me with everything. He wanted me to have security. I'm just finishing what he started." I stared at the page. It looked official enough to fool someone who wasn't paying attention. Clean formatting, a date typed neatly in the corner, a notary stamp that looked real at first glance. But there was one problem. The date was 3 months after my father's funeral. "This is fake," I said quietly. "You forged his signature." Her face tightened for a split second, then softened into that condescending smile she used whenever she wanted to gaslight me. "Don't be ridiculous. You always jump to conclusions. He mentioned this transfer to me before he passed. Maybe you just don't remember." I laughed short, sharp, humorless. "Yeah, funny thing, dead people don't sign documents." Her expression cracked. "Watch your tone," she snapped. "You're not going to talk to me like—" "Like what?" I said. "Like the woman who's trying to steal my house." Her voice went cold. "I have a lawyer now. You might want to think twice before making accusations you can't prove." She stood, gathering the papers like they were holy scripture, and stormed upstairs. I stayed frozen at the table, heart pounding. For a moment I thought about confronting her, about ripping up those pages and throwing them in the fireplace. But Everett's voice echoed in my head. People like her count on emotion. Stay calm. Gather proof. So I grabbed my phone, took photos of every document she'd left behind, and emailed them to myself. Then I called Everett. He picked up on the first ring. "What happened?" "She forged Dad's signature," I said, "and she's bragging about it." He sighed. "Good, now we have her." That night I locked my bedroom door for the first time in years. I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house felt like a threat, every shadow like proof that she wasn't done. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of her voice downstairs, and realized she'd already started spreading her version of the story to everyone who would listen. By breakfast, half the neighborhood knew my version of the story. Linda had seen to that. When I walked outside, Mrs. Turner from next door gave me the kind of tight, polite smile people reserve for scandal. "Morning," she said. "I heard you and Linda are sorting out some paperwork issues." "Something like that," I muttered. She nodded quickly, clearly eager to escape the conversation. I could already guess what Linda told her, probably that I was throwing her out after she helped raise me, or some melodramatic nonsense about betrayal. She'd always been good at playing the martyr. When I came back inside, Linda was at the kitchen table again, phone in hand, talking loudly enough for me to hear every word. "Yes, it's been so hard. He's threatening me with lawyers now. I just hope the judge sees reason. His father wanted me protected." She made sure to look at me when she said that last part. Then she ended the call with a sigh that could have won her an Oscar. Linda, I said quietly, stop lying to people. She tilted her head. Lying? I'm just explaining my side. You've made it clear you're ready to throw me on the street. You forged documents, I said. You should be thanking me for not calling the police. Her smile twitched. You wouldn't, you're too nice for that. You've always been your father's little saint. That last part stung. Not because she was right, but because she thought she was. She thought kindness was weakness. So I smiled back. You're right, I am nice. Which is why I'm giving you one more chance to move out before this gets public. She scoffed, but her hand tightened around her phone. That afternoon, I met with Everett again. I showed him the photos, the timestamps, the messages where she hinted at owning the house. He whistled low. This is good, he said. Very good. Once we file, she's finished. Judges don't play around with forgery. For the first time, I felt like the ground was solid again. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was building a case. When I got home, I found Linda in the living room with two of my dad's old friends. They turned toward me, clearly uncomfortable. One of them, Greg, cleared his throat. She told us you're forcing her out. That can't be right, can it? I looked at Linda. She smiled sweetly, hand on her chest. I just wanted them to hear both sides. I didn't bother defending myself. I walked over to the coffee table, dropped the printed evidence folder in front of her and said, "Here's both sides." She went pale. Greg glanced down at the pages, photocopies of the forged documents, the will, the title transfer dates, and his jaw tightened. Linda, is this true? She didn't answer. She just stood, grabbed her bag, and stormed off without another word. I didn't follow. I didn't have to. The damage was already done, just not to me this time. That night, she stopped pretending. The mask dropped, and I finally saw what desperation looks like when someone realizes they're out of moves. For a few blessed days, Linda went quiet. No fake smiles, no whispered phone calls, no dramatic sighs echoing through the halls. The house finally felt like it could breathe again. I almost started to think she'd accepted defeat. Then one night, I came home from work and realized she hadn't. The front door was unlocked. The lights were off. For a split second, I thought maybe she'd already left, until I stepped inside and saw the mess. Drawers pulled out, cabinets emptied, papers scattered across the floor like confetti from a nervous breakdown. Linda sat on the couch with a half-empty bottle of wine, mascara smudged under her eyes. "You're ruining everything," she said, her voice hoarse. "Do you know that?" "Linda, what are you doing?" She pointed at me, swaying slightly. "You think this house is yours because of a piece of paper, but you don't know what it's like to lose everything, to love someone and then have their ungrateful child take it all away." "I didn't take anything," I said carefully. "You tried to steal it." That did it. Her face twisted, and she slammed her glass on the table so hard it cracked. "You're a parasite, just like your father said." That stopped me cold. "What did you just say?" Her eyes widened slightly, as if realizing she'd gone too far, but it was already out there. "He never said that," I said quietly. "You did." Silence, the kind that burns in your chest. She turned away, muttering something under her breath about how I'd regret this. Then she grabbed her purse and staggered toward the door. "You'll see," she said, pointing back at me. "You'll regret taking what's mine." The door slammed, and I stood there for a long time, the smell of wine and bitterness lingering in the air. I cleaned up the mess in silence. Every ripped paper and broken glass felt like a reminder that this wasn't just about property, it was about control. And now that she'd lost it, I knew she wouldn't stop until she found another way to strike back. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of knocking. When I opened the door, a uniformed man was standing there holding an envelope. "Delivery for you," he said. Inside was a summons. Linda had filed a civil claim, alleging emotional distress and financial exploitation. I actually laughed out loud. Of course she had. But Everett didn't laugh when I told him. He sighed. She's not trying to win. She's trying to bleed you dry time, energy, money. But that also means she's desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. That night, I realized Everett was right, because the next mistake Linda made would destroy whatever sympathy she had left. The court filing turned out to be more dramatic than dangerous. Linda's lawyer, a man with the weary look of someone used to losing, claimed I'd emotionally tormented her by enforcing the will. Everett called it what it was, a fishing expedition, but he also warned me to stay alert. "She's hopping, you'll lose your temper," he said. "If you give her anything to twist, she'll use it." So I didn't. I stayed calm, stoic, even. Every interaction was short and documented. I started recording conversations on my phone, saving voicemails, even keeping receipts for groceries. It felt paranoid, but it was also strangely empowering, like taking back control one detail at a time. For a while it worked. She stopped confronting me directly and switched to little jabs, emails copied to relatives, passive-aggressive Facebook posts about ungrateful children. I ignored all of it. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Friday afternoon when Everett called. "We got discovery from her side," he said. "You're going to want to see this." When I arrived, he had a manila folder waiting on his desk. Inside were copies of her supposed evidence, screenshots of texts I never sent, emails that didn't match my address, and worst of all, another forged signature from my father's will, this time altered to look like I'd changed the terms after his death. My jaw tightened. She's doubling down. Everett nodded, and in doing so, she just committed a federal offense. That night I drove home running on adrenaline and disbelief. I'd known she was manipulative, but this was reckless, almost self-destructive. I found her in the kitchen, calmly eating dinner like nothing had happened. I sat across from her. "You forged more documents." She didn't even flinch. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Stop," I said quietly. "They already found out. The notary stamp was fake. They traced it." Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. "You're lying." "I don't have to. You just admitted it." For a moment the mask cracked. She set her fork down, eyes glassy. "You think you've won, don't you? You think this house makes you better than me?" "No," I said. "It's not about the house. It's about you not destroying what's left of Dad's memory." She laughed then, a dry, hollow sound. "He was never the saint you think he was. You'll find that out soon enough." "Maybe," I said, standing, "but I'm done finding it out from you." I left her sitting there, staring at the table, and called Everett the next morning to confirm we were pressing charges for forgery. He didn't hesitate. When the police came to question her a few days later, she finally dropped the act, and the truth she revealed shocked even me. The detectives showed up on a Tuesday morning, 2 of them, crisp suits, calm voices, polite enough to seem harmless. But the look on Linda's face when they flashed their badges told me she knew exactly what this was about. "Linda Martin," one of them asked. She hesitated. "Yes. We'd like to ask you a few questions about some documents related to the Harrison estate." Her eyes darted to me like I'd betrayed her, which was ironic considering the circumstances. I stepped aside and let them in. They sat her down at the dining table, the same one where she'd once poured wine and bragged about taking charge of the household. For almost an hour they questioned her. At first she played dumb, claimed she didn't understand legal jargon, that maybe she'd misplaced some paperwork. But when they showed her printouts of the altered will and the notary stamp that didn't exist, she cracked. "I was just trying to protect what's mine," she blurted. "Your father wanted me safe. He said the house would always be my home." "Ma'am," one detective said calmly, "your husband's will explicitly leaves the property to his son." Her voice shook now, desperate, defensive. "He told me he'd change it. He said he just hadn't gotten around to it yet. I was only forging his signature." I cut in. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't regret them. For a long time, I'd let her twist the truth, make me second-guess myself. Hearing her finally admit it out loud, seeing her cornered by her own lies, felt like exhaling after months underwater. The detectives wrapped up shortly after that. They took her statement, collected the documents, and told her she'd be contacted by the prosecutor's office. When they left, the silence that followed was almost eerie. Linda sat there staring at the wall, her face pale, her confidence gone. "You've ruined me," she whispered. "No," I said quietly, "you did that yourself." For the first time, she didn't argue. She just sat there, shoulders trembling, and I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered the forged papers, the lies to my neighbors, the insults about my dad, and that sympathy died before it could grow. The next week was a blur of legal filings, phone calls, and one last meeting with Everett. He told me the prosecutors were building a solid case and that her attempts to sue me were officially dead. "She'll probably take a plea deal," he said. "Community service, probation if she's lucky. But the forgery charge means she's not touching that house again." I nodded, trying to absorb it all. It didn't feel like victory, not yet. It felt like a long, deep breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months. That night I came home to find the house empty. No perfume, no wine glasses, no traces of her chaos. Just me, my dad's old tools, and silence that finally felt peaceful. A week later, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address, just my name scrawled in shaky handwriting. Inside was one final message from her, and what it said caught me completely off guard. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for a full day before I opened it. No return address, no postage, just my name written in that looping cursive I'd come to associate with chaos. I thought about throwing it out, about not giving her the satisfaction of another word. But curiosity, stupid human curiosity, won. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once, smelling faintly of her perfume. "You think this is over, but it never really will be. I loved your father, more than you ever could. I only wanted what he promised me. Maybe I went too far, but you'll understand someday, when someone takes everything you love and calls it justice." That was it. No apology, no acknowledgement of what she'd done, just one last attempt to make me doubt myself. Classic Linda. I set the letter down and laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. Even now, when the courts were done with her, when the truth had been dragged into the light, she still needed to have the last word. I burned the letter in the sink, watched the edges curl and blacken until the words disappeared completely. Then I opened every window in the house and let the smoke drift out, like I was finally cleansing the place of whatever hold she'd had left. Over the next few weeks, life slowly started to look like mine again. I repainted the living room in the same cedar tone my dad had loved. I brought back his recliner, his records, the old lamp she'd tried to replace. For the first time since the funeral, the house felt alive again, not haunted, not heavy, just home. Neighbors who had once avoided me started waving again. Some even apologized after hearing the real story. I didn't blame them. Linda had always known how to sell a narrative. The case wrapped quietly. She took a plea deal, community service, restitution for damages, and a ban from contacting me again. Everett sent me the final notice with a small, smiley face doodled on the sticky note. "Closure looks good on you." He was right, it did. One night I sat out on the porch with a glass of bourbon, the same one Dad used to drink from. The porch creaked under me, the crickets hummed, and for the first time in a long time I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next fight to start. I thought about Dad, about how proud he'd be that I didn't let her win, but also how sad he'd be that it came to this. Then I raised the glass and whispered, "It's done, Dad, we're good." And for once I believed it.